Hi, today we're in the home of Scott McMillan and Catherine Kurtz here in Wicklow County, Ireland. And Scott, I guess you have a new book, your first book coming out.
Yes, yes. This is the long-awaited Nazi Vampires from Hell, Book One.
Book One.
Book One. It's a trilogy. It's published by Rock. It's actually coming out under the title Knights of the Blood.
Oh, they didn't like the working title.
Well, I liked the working title Nazi Vampires from Hell, but they felt that that was lacking in gravitas. It wasn't serious enough for a work of horror, so they've renamed it. But it'll be out in July.
I understand you have a bit of a checkered past.
Yes, I'm sitting on it actually.
Oh.
A checkered backside. No, I worked at ABC Television for a number of years. I worked part of that time at 20th Century Fox. I did 8 years in the Army Reserve. I was an Army major in public affairs. I did 10 years with Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. So I've done all sorts of lunatic things, in addition to having esoteric hobbies of touring in vintage cars and flying gliders and riding horses. You know, I mean, it's complete lunatic. I just do things that are fun.
Tell us about the dating game.
How I got into show business.
Please.
I was a dating game contestant, and better than that, ladies and gentlemen, a dating game winner.
Ooh.
I was bachelor #1. Which is much better than going through life thinking of yourself as the #2 bachelor. No, I was on the show. I was very, very funny. And out of sheer desperation, the girl selected me. And so I came back. That was for the daytime show. I came back a week later. We did a nighttime show. I won again. And again, I was very funny, hilarious, people laughing, wetting themselves as I would come out with these droll and inane answers to stupid questions. And as I was leaving the set, a man stopped me and said, "Hey, what do you do?" And I told him I was studying broadcasting at Los Angeles City College, preparatory to leaving to the University of Southern California. And he said, "Oh, not bad. How'd you like to work here at ABC TV?" And I said, "Sure, do anything. You know, I would carry coffee, sweep up, you tell me." And he reached in his wallet and said, "Here's my card. Call my office in the morning and we'll get you into our intern program." And I looked at the card, and it was the president of the American Broadcasting Corporation. And the next day he hired me, and I was there for about 5 years at ABC. I started out as a page, showing people where to sit for intellectual masterpieces like Let's Make a Deal with Monty Hall, and then went on from there to being a stage manager and assistant director, writing, wrote quiz show questions, wrote the AM Los Angeles show, and then left television when I saw a special showing at ABC Television of the first ever home video recorders. The Sony people came down, and I watched this thing, and I thought, this is time shifting, and it's electronic publishing, and it's the future. And so I left, went into magazines, went to Peterson Publishing, worked there for 2 years, and then went to Wright Publishing in Newport Beach for 10 years, the last 4 years of which I was in charge of their electronic publishing department. And we produced videos on a variety of subjects: exercise, sex, more sex, exercise, sex again because those sell very well. Just kidding if my mom's watching. But how to repair your car, restore your house, that sort of thing. And then came to Ireland about 7 or 8 years ago, initially to buy a motion picture studio. That deal fell through because Mary Tyler Moore bought it. She had more money than I did, so she won. It was an auction situation. And I've been here writing my first 2 novels, half dozen short stories, and a couple of screenplays the last 6 years, none of which would have been possible were it not for the love and guidance and support of my wife, Catherine Kurtz. And so I'm really Mr. Catherine Kurtz.
Oh, I understand you even have some badges that say
Yes,
so.
I have a badge from one of the ABA conventions, American Booksellers, that says Mr. Catherine Kurtz on it. And underneath that in smaller print it says, "Don't laugh, just buy the books."
There's one other burning question I have.
A burning question.
A burning question. that
Carita,
I have
I'm
to
yours.
know.
Yes,
Tell
I
us.
fool around.
No. Oh, well, we might edit that one out, but tell us about the Gong Show.
Well, there's not much to say about the Gong Show. The original concept was a show called The Real Amateur Hour. It was 30 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
And we set a camera up on stage, long shot, and we brought in bad acts. And if they were good, we gonged them and got rid of them right away. If they were bad, we let them go on and embarrass themselves until they ran out of steam. And this was done when I was with Chuck Barris Productions, and so that became the Gong Show with Chuck hosting it. Slightly different format, but the basic concept was the same.
Now you truly have a checkered past.
Yes, I do.
I think so.
If only I had a checker cab, I'd be a happy man.
Well, we could be arranged.
Okay.
I've seen them out there.
Well, if you can find me a rust-free one, let me know.
Oh, okay. Well, we've covered quite a bit. Could we go ahead and maybe you could read a piece for us from the book?
Sure, I'd be glad to. Let me get the manuscript and I'll do something for you.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Thank you. As you know, the premise of the book is that there exists in Luxembourg an 800-year-old order of knights, crusader knights, all of whom in the 13th century became vampires inadvertently. And these are very good, very pious men. During the Second World War, the sanctity of their castle was invaded by an SS officer who purposely infected himself with the disease that creates them as vampires, and then vanished back into the Second World War. Today, in the present tense in the book, John Drummond, our hero, is going into the castle to meet with these crusader vampires, not knowing if they are good or evil, knowing only that he's going into a castle filled with vampires, and basically he's going in alone. His backup is a 70-year-old priest from New Hampshire, and the priest is waiting in the shadows of the woods as John Drummond, captain of LAPD Homicide Division, tries to make his first contact with the crusader vampires. So we pick up the story with Drummond and Father Freeze standing in the woods on the Ardennes forests in Luxembourg, looking out across at the castle of the Order of the Sword. "Go with God," Father Freeze whispered. Drummond let the old man hold him for a second or two more, then patted him awkwardly on the shoulder and pulled away, not looking back as he stood, and moved off into the darkness, crouching low. He had shifted the Beretta into the pocket of his leather jacket as he crouched with Freeze back in the forest, and now he shoved his right hand into the pocket to steady the weapon as he broke into a jog, his other hand going into the left-hand pocket to balance himself as he ran. Along with the extra ammo he had put there, his hand closed unexpectedly on the rosary that Father Freeze had given him what seemed like a lifetime ago. He pulled it out as he flattened himself against the side of the barbican and arched himself carefully into the guided approach across the castle's drawbridge. With the rosary beads in one hand and the Beretta at the ready in the other, close beside his head, he thumbed off the safety and listened, straining for any hint of sound that might be reaction to his approach. Nothing moved. When he had counted to 20 by his racing pulse, he cast a quick look back the way he had come, then looped the rosary beads over his head and tucked the cross inside his jacket. It might help, and began slowly sliding back along the barbican arch towards the opening in the wall. Back at the edge of the meadow, Freeze watched Drummond through field glasses until he passed from the moonlight into the shadow of the barbican arch, and then put the glasses aside. Drummond crouched down low on his haunches and kept as low as possible as he worked his way towards the arch. At the drawbridge, he paused, testing it with only part of his weight, then slowly proceeded on tiptoe, careful not to make any sound. Across the drawbridge, Drummond came to the gates themselves. shoving against one and then the other, first tentatively and then with all of his might. He failed to budge either of the massive iron-studded doors. Looking around, he noticed another, much smaller door to the left of the gates, and he glided silently over to that. Pistol at the ready, Drummond flattened himself against the wall next to the small door. Crouching down, he leaned slightly forward and used his free hand to shove experimentally against the bottom of the door. The door swung easily and bumped against the inside wall. The hollow bang sounded like a thunderclap to Drummond's taut senses. Straining every muscle in his body, Drummond tried to hear any sound coming from beyond the open door, but nothing stirred the silence of the night. Still crouching, Drummond leapt into the doorway, assuming a combat stance, eyes and pistol sweeping the darkness ahead, ready to blast anything that moved. Nothing. Slowly, Drummond stood, raising the muzzle of the pistol close beside his face again, and stepped through the open doorway. He found himself in a small room at the base of a narrow turnpike stair that led upward into even greater darkness. Drummond's mouth was dry with fear as he slowly began to climb the winding stairs. The absolute blackness that was pierced only by the occasional shaft of moonlight that edged in through the arrow slits in the curved wall. The steps were uneven, and he stumbled. Fear had become a tangible, coppery taste in Drummond's mouth by the time he reached the top of the stairs. There was no landing at the top, just another small door set into the wall. Drummond turned the stirrup-shaped latch and gently pressed against the door. Silently, on well-greased hinge pegs, the door swung open. The high-ceilinged room beyond was filled with the machinery used to raise and lower the portcullis of the castle. Two large, cross-shaped arrow slits admitted a flood of moonlight to the room, casting an eerie checkerboard pattern on the floor as it passed wraith-like through the raised portcullis. Barely visible in the half-light was another small door on the opposite wall. Carefully, his back to the wall, Drummond made his way past the first of the two huge windlasses used to raise the portcullis, and had just about reached the center of the room when he felt the floor vanish beneath him. Throwing his arms out wide, Drummond let out a yelp as he tried to catch himself. His knee banged sharply against the stone edge of the murder hole set into the floor above the castle's gates as he careened into an awkward, half-sitting position and somehow managed not to fall through. He still was gasping with panic by the time he became aware that he was not falling any farther. After carefully feeling about him in the gloom, he managed to shift his footing and scramble precariously to a standing position again, feet straddling the opening. But as he blessed his good fortune at not having fallen victim to the hole, he realized that he no longer held his pistol. Drummond felt around on the floor for what seemed like hours trying to find his gun, but with no success. Finally, fearing the worst, he peered down through the hole. There, 20 feet below, lying in a brilliant patch illuminated by the moonlight, Drummond could see the Beretta. "I still wish I had some garlic," he muttered to himself as he stood up and cautiously resumed his approach to the other door. He took the stirrup-handled latch and tried to turn it. Nothing happened. The door was locked. Drummond tried shoving against the door with all of his might, but it didn't budge. Slowly, he took a deep breath and let it out. It was a dead end. And even as he decided that all he could do was go back the way he had come, he heard the only other door slam shut behind him. Panicking, Drummond turned and launched himself across the chamber, terror clawing at his belly, but he never made it to the door. From up in the rafters, 3 men in hooded white capes dropped down on Drummond, knocking him unconscious as they landed on him. Then 2 of the men dragged Drummond to his feet, while the third produced a large key and unlocked the door that led down to the courtyard of the castle of the Order of the Sword. Mr. Drummond is now with the vampires.
Oh my. I think I'll buy this book, huh?
Oh, well, by all means, buy this book.
This book?
Right here. This is The Finger That Sells. And The Finger That Sells is pointing at Knights of the Blood. And it says right there, created by Catherine Kurtz and Scott McMillan.
Oh, they should have given you top billing at least.
Ladies before gentlemen.
Oh, that's true. That's right.
And I'm always delighted that my wife comes first. So I think that's absolutely super.